Imagine the softest sheets you've ever felt. Now imagine them getting even softer over time. I'm here to tell you about Boll & Branch sheets. In a recent customer survey, 96% replied that Boll & Branch sheets get softer with every wash. They're made from the rarest organic cotton and designed to get even softer over time. Try their sheets with a 30-night guarantee plus 15% off your first order with code Odyssey. So head to BOLLandbranch.com today. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
This is GoPowerCat.com publisher Tim Fitzgerald. Thank you for listening to this PowerCat podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode of the PowerCat podcast by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, or your favorite podcast network. And if you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a subscriber to GoPowerCat.com. We cover the Wildcats like no one else, with our VIP customers enjoying one-of-a-kind coverage from our team of professional journalists. And sign up today for an annual subscription to GPC and grab a 30% discount on your first year. And now here's the PowerCat Podcast.
The following is a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production. You've discovered your link to GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat Postgame podcast, presented by Caddyshack Golf, and it starts right now. Now, let's go to the WTC Gig-Powered Studios. Here's your host, GoPowerCat.com publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Postgame Podcast, sponsored by Caddyshack Golf. Tim Fitzgerald from the WTC Gig-Powered Studios here in downtown Manhattan. And, of course, our football analyst, Brian Hanley from places in Texas not named Lubbock, is with us again. How far are you from Lubbock? Frisco to Lubbock takes how long? Do you have any clue?
Yeah, it's like a 5.5-hour drive.
Yeah, that's not fun.
That was too far for me to drive, and flying into Lubbock, I was like, no, I'll catch this one on TV.
Yeah, our boys did the drive too, because flights to Lubbock cost. They cost a lot of money, and you just want to make sure you get there, and they got there, and lo and behold, they saw a Kansas State victory. A nice win on the road. Anytime you go in this conference and steal a road win, it is notable. 30-27. I'd like to apologize to our subscribers at GoPowerCat.com. My prediction was 31-27, and I screwed up. I didn't quite get it. And you can always tell when I'm not quite sure K-State will win, because I picked the score 31-27. Almost every time I'm like, am I going to do it again? Really? And this time it actually turned out to be pretty darn accurate. It was 6-3 at halftime, Brian, and I'm like, this is not how I thought the game would go at all. A field goal contest, but they were playing pretty good defense, just not good enough offense for the Wildcats in that first half.
Yeah, K-State came out defensively, played very well. Offense, they were moving the ball, but it was our Achilles heel, just bad pre-snap penalties, and it just wasn't very clean. We get in the red zone, and we were settling for field goals. It was like we bogged down. So I noticed, guys, it was better. It was definitely a better effort, especially in the first half, or I should say especially the first half, but we were talking about the first half. It was a better effort, but we were shooting ourselves in the foot. And it made it to be a low-scoring game. It looked like we couldn't do anything, and we didn't do a ton, but we were doing more than what the score indicated. We just shot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, it was not pretty, and I just realized the Texas Tech postgame stats, for whatever reason, do not include team stats. I'll have to look those up on the internet here in a little bit. There were a lot of penalties, and once again, it wasn't really the number of penalties, it's when the penalties came, how
That's
they
right.
came. There was a couple false starts, I believe, down in the red zone or close to it. There was the incredible return by Joshua Youngblood for a touchdown, and then he gets a penalty. My guys on the ground said it wasn't much of a penalty, but it still was called. So you kick off from the 50, and they go right down and get the touchdown right back. So Kansas State just kept kind of creeping the door open, but when they needed to close it in the second half, a running game that was, once again, mostly inept in this game, showed some signs of life, and it's almost like they got a sense of urgency in the run game, and they took care of business. Skylar Thompson finally found some running room and picked up a first down, and then James Gilbert made use of a great block by Skylar Thompson to spring free for the final first down of the game. And man, K-State gets out of there. The Wildcats are 7-4. They moved up probably a step in the bowl pecking order. We'll try to touch on that, but it's really a scrambled mess. And Texas Tech's now completely out of bowl contention. As they dropped to 4-7, they were clinging to the hope of maybe having a 5-6 record going into Texas next weekend. That won't happen. And Texas might be thankful because the Longhorns are 6-5 and barely over the hump themselves, as they've kind of come unraveled since that win over K-State. So this is a wacky conference, and I think it's time to admit something here. The Big 12 just ain't very good, my friend. It's just not very good. We saw Oklahoma struggle with TCU in Norman tonight.
Yeah, the Big 12 is not as good as what we thought it was going to be, and what it started out looked great. And it's just not that good. OU, I mean, there's no way that OU is going to make the playoff. There's absolutely no chance that is going to happen. I don't care who loses. They're not going to put them in. So we're going to be on the outside looking in. But, you know, it is what it is. K-State won. That's what I really care about most. So we put ourselves in a position, like you said, to go to a better bowl game. Better effort overall. You know, it was a much better effort. Guys came out, played with a sense of urgency, things that we didn't do at all last week. So it was good to see those guys come out, and just play hard. Because that was what lacked last week. So I'm sure the coaching staff, testament to them, I'm sure they got after them because they watched film. They knew what happened, and I'm sure they got after them. K-State came out, played a lot harder, got a hard-fought win. Wasn't a perfect game, wasn't a clean game by any stretch. A lot of mistakes, but you know what? Hey, we're a program that's building. We got to remember that. We got to get back to that. We're a program that is building, changing cultures, and building for something to get to where we want to get to. That we're just in the infancy stages of this thing, and you know what? In my opinion, we're ahead of schedule. We got 7 wins. I thought 6 was the max. We're at 7, chance to go to 8 and beat a good Iowa State team next week. So we'll see what happens, but we got a victory tonight.
Yeah, exactly. And really the story of the first half was Kansas State's defense, Brian. Man, they were really, really good in that first half. And I think the player of the game on the defensive side of the ball might just be DeQuan Patton. I know Wyatt Hubert had a couple big sacks, and we'll get to those in a little bit. But DeQuan Patton had 10 tackles total in the game, and, of course, it started with this, a huge takeaway. Jet Duffy for the Red Raiders doesn't throw many picks, but he threw 2 in this game, starting with this play from DeQuan Patton.
There's the snap to him. Wanted to swing it to the right. Now he fires far side. It's picked off. This is Daquan at the 30. Patton's got it, and now he loses the ball. And falling on it is the Wildcats. I believe it was Goolsby, and K-State will have the football here.
You know, it's funny, when he picked that ball and started to return it, I'm like, he does not see that receiver to his left. He's looking upfield. He has no idea he's about to get popped from that side. And sure enough, the ball came out and Denzel Goolsby hopped on it. We've seen this story before with a turnover. I think it was at Mississippi State where they got the pick and then fumbled it right back. But that defense was just huge in the first half. They just absolutely confused Jet Duffy. They took away the running game. They didn't let him pass much. The problem was the flip side. The offense only scored 6 points. We had we saw a dropped pass in the end zone for a touchdown. Really just poor technique by Joaquin Gill, and they end up going to the halftime locker room at 6-3 when Blake Lynch uncharacteristically misses a field goal on the last play of the half. But you went to halftime with those disappointments and still thought, you're leading at half and you get the ball to start the second half. Despite all the problems in the first half, you had to feel pretty good about things.
Yeah, felt really good. Like I said, offense, if they were moving the ball, they just couldn't score. Like we said, they shot themselves in the foot. So they were moving it a little bit better than what the score indicated, but the defense was absolutely lights out. Absolutely lights out. And you could see it. Guys running around. Guys were where they were supposed to be. And that's all. It just comes back to just playing hard. When you can play hard, that's the beginning.
Right.
When you can play fast and then you know where you're going and all that, that was the next step. And it just looks like the guys got back to doing that, got back to running around, making good plays. The first half on defensive side was a thing of beauty, I thought, and I know Texas Tech's not an offensive juggernaut, so I'm not here to say that. But you know what? Neither was West Virginia, and that didn't turn out too well. So I just think the guys, they came out with a sense of urgency on both sides of the ball. Again, it wasn't a clean game, especially the first half. It wasn't a clean half, but the defense played lights out. Offense, sputtered, but we were ahead. I thought it was important that we were ahead. I thought we were going to get some points at the end of the first half, but it happens. Hey, it happens. So overall, the first half was a good half for K-State.
It was, and a reminder that we are sponsored by Caddyshack Golf. Caddyshack Golfwear, caddy with 2 T's. Visit caddyshackgolf.com for all of your officially licensed golfing, Willie apparel, accessories, and more. Use the code GPC for free shipping on your next order. And we have a Caddyshack Golf question of the week in our second half as we open it up to questions from Wabash Station. Some very good questions about this game, about this team from our well-educated users at Wabash Station, our subscribers. Here's another really nice defensive play from that first half.
From the right hash, the Red Raiders wearing all black tonight. There's a swing pass. Roderick has it, and he is knocked down. What a play by Elijah Sullivan.
They were swarming in that first half. They were just everywhere. Yeah. They would show him something pre-snap and bail out of it, and he was just Jet Duffy. And to Jet Duffy's credit, I think he escaped about 3 sacks that he should have been pulled down in the first half. Somehow, like a split second before the guy can wrap him up, his alarm clock would go off and he'd flee the pocket and get away from someone. He's slippery, but, man, K-State got it to him just enough to really frustrate him in that first half.
Yeah, K-State, they did a really good job of tackling, that was the key. Second half, not so much. First half, we did a real good job running to the football and actually getting guys, especially the quarterback, to the ground. That was the important thing. Just coming out and, like I said, playing fast, being where they were supposed to be. It was a really good sign to see.
One of the few offensive highlights in that first half for K-State was a nice catch for Joaquin Gill from Skylar Thompson. Let's listen to that real quick.
Thompson barks out the signals. There's the snap. It's a good one. He looks left and throws that way and has his man at midfield. Down the sideline, 40, 35. This is Gill to the 30. Inside of the numbers, he goes to the 20. Still on his feet to the 15 and down to the 12-yard line. They'll mark him at the 13. Welcome back, Joaquin Gill. What a play for the Cats.
After missing a game with a concussion, Joaquin Gill made his presence felt. Unfortunately, he did drop a touchdown pass. But I think Skylar Thompson at times in this game threw the ball really well. The stats didn't show it, and sometimes I wasn't real happy with his decision-making when the play didn't develop. I thought he just looked past some open receivers in scramble mode and also kind of turn. He has a tendency to evade the pass rush right into the pass rush, and I think it's just an annoying habit. I hope he can break by the end of next season. By the time his college career's out, he knows you got to go up in that pocket, not around the edge where the guys get you. As an old offensive line, that's got to drive you, offensive lineman. That's got to drive you batty.
Oh, yeah. Drives you absolutely nuts, especially the tackles, because the tackle's job is to push guys by. when guys are looping around, it's literally their job to push guys past where you're going to be set up. And if you are backing up and running into it, I mean, there's nothing that they can do. They're sitting there and like, hey, the pocket is meant for you to step up. And hopefully it's kind of what you said. And I mentioned that last week, his tendency to always run right. And there was a couple of times that he did just that, and it almost seemed like Tech knew it, and he was having to run way back just to get around to go right. And I'm like, buddy, you got to step up. But for the most part, he did play a decent game. I know the stats may not have been the greatest, and he made some mistakes, but it was a solid game by Skyler, and one that we needed. And don't get me wrong, he also had some guys let him down too. There were 2 touchdown passes that got dropped.
Yeah.
So, he there was a couple times he put the ball right on the money, right where you're supposed to put it. Guys dropping touchdown passes. So, but he missed a couple. So, but that's okay. He had to get his confidence back because, again, last week was not a good one. So good to see him bounce back. Offensive line bounce back. Teams have decided, K-State, you're not going to run the ball. Right. Teams have just literally decided that. They're not going to run it. But we ran it enough to keep them honest. And you still have to run it. Even when you can't just throw it 70 times. You got to run the ball a little bit. And we did. It wasn't it's super effective, but it was enough. It was enough to move the football a little bit to keep them honest. So I thought it was a solid effort on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I agree. They had a lot of lost yardage in the running game. Another disappointing factor, they have been getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage quite a bit, 36 total in that. 126 net yards on the ground on 37 carries. They only averaged 3.4 a carry, but believe it or not, that was an improvement over last week. There were some signs of life, and when the game was on the line, they got it done, as I mentioned a little bit ago. They got a couple first downs running the ball, and it was absolutely enormous. But one thing that Chris Kleiman shares with Bill Snyder is he wants to defer. I don't know if K-State lost the toss and Tech took the ball or K-State won and deferred, but he wants that ball to start the second half. And they missed their opportunity to finish the first half with points and then get the ball back in the second half, which is, the dream scenario. If you can score right before halftime and get the ball back and score, it's kind of almost like a knockout punch in a lot of games. They missed in the first half, missed that field goal, dropped a touchdown pass at the end, and they got the ball back, and boy, they went operating right down the field. It was an impressive drive for K-State as they ended up with a touchdown from Skylar Thompson to Phillip Brooks, and they covered 75 yards on 9 plays. Here's that touchdown to Brooks.
Cats need the 8-yard line. They're at the 14. Right hash mark. There's the snap. Skylar back to throw. He fires into the middle, and it's caught by Brooks. He's at the 5. Breaks the tackle. Wildcat touchdown. Phillip Brooks is in from 14 yards away, and K-State scores on a 3rd and 8. The game's first touchdown to make it 12-3.
What's funny about that, Brian, is that was huge for Kansas State. All of a sudden, they've got the 2-score lead. They get it up to 13-3. But I felt like even Tech relaxed. Like, we can score touchdowns in this game. And then all hell broke loose. After going 6-3 in the first half, they both scored 24 points in the second half. And it turned into the shootout that you don't want to get into with the Red Raiders. New coaching staff, same mentality. They love to go fast and score points. When that shootout developed, I don't know about you, but I got a little bit worried. K-State was not playing its game, and this really favored the Red Raiders.
Yeah, I did too. It was one of those where you thought, okay, K-State, if you can just control the ball. And it was, for the most part, we did, but, we got into, like I said, the shootout and just trading scores, and it didn't have the feel of a game that we were going to pull out at the end, but we just kept scoring. So when we kept scoring, and it was like, okay, we need this little cushion that we have, because apparently it was like both teams got it figured out, and neither defense was going to be able to stop the other one. So it was just one of those get into a shootout, moving up and down the field. I didn't feel easy about it. I was the same way, Tim. I did not feel good about it, but at the same time, as an offense, we kept scoring. So that's all you can ask. And it was key to have that 10-point cushion. I think that meant everything, with everything versus having a tie game or, them come down and tying the game up. We had the 10-point cushion, which I believe psychologically made a difference.
Tech responded, though, man. They went 12 plays and 75 yards on the next possession. And that's a credit to the defense. They made them earn it. 12 plays is not what Texas Tech wants to do typically. They want to get down the field faster. And that proved to be huge. I mean, I know they gave up the touchdown, but anytime you can get into the game of making them eat some clock, you're doing what you need to do. That's in favor of you if you're forcing the clock to expire. And then Tech had to kick off, and they made a mistake. I tell you what, it's hard to find really electric guys that can play as a true freshman. And for this coaching staff to come in so late in the game and identify Joshua Youngblood out of Tampa as a late signee, he was still available in the marketplace, amazingly, with an early signing period nowadays. And to find a guy like this that they can bring in, I think is really promising for future recruiting classes. They seem to know what they want. And if this is what they get out of a short recruiting effort, picking up the pieces as a new staff, I'm really encouraged, and I want to see what happens over the next couple of years. Let me get your thoughts on this after I play the call by Wyatt Thompson. Here is the kickoff return from Joshua Youngblood. Man, it was a thing of beauty.
Here is the kick, high kick, deep kick, right about a yard or so in. Here comes Youngblood. He's going to take it out. He can run. He's at the 15, got a block. He's at the 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 to midfield, needs another block. He's at the 40, he's at the 30, right on the sideline, 20 to the 10, 5, Wildcat touchdown. Wildcat touchdown. He took it all the way. Unbelievable for Youngblood.
That was as good a reading a block as I've seen a K-State returner do. Tyler Lockett was pretty good at it. Jordy Nelson was pretty good at it on returns. David Allen was the best at it. He could just read blocks, but he was so patient on that return. I can't even remember who was engaged there, maybe Elder along the boundary. And he read that block a couple times before he got around it. Man, it was impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And he's a freshman. He's only going to get better. He's only going to get bigger. I mean, you can look at him and tell he's a freshman. He's a little kid. And, as far as size is concerned, I mean, he's a little out there. But he's super fast. And, athleticism can make a difference. And it's kind of what you said, Tim. If the coaching staff can identify this, because this is what built K-State, is identifying guys from other areas that, outlining areas that other teams either miss on or pass on that turn out to be players. And K-State identified them, brought them in, and there's Katie bar the door. One of them was my roommate. Was Darren Howard from Florida. He was a 3-star kid out of Florida, that he was super skinny. He was tall and super skinny, and he was built to play defensive end. But he played linebacker in high school, and that teams wanted him to play linebacker and this and that. He was 185 pounds. I mean, you're not going to do that in Division I football, playing middle linebacker at 185 pounds. And if K-State's going to be able to do that and bring guys in like that and identify them, I feel extremely good about where we're going. So I like this direction as far as what the coaching staff can do. Yeah. It's encouraging, not to harp on what things were previously, but it's very encouraging. But he can play. And that was outstanding to watch him run. I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, it looked like he'd been doing it his whole life.
Yeah.
He kind of set it up, and he's like, yep, you're right there, but my blocker's there. And the way he tiptoed, I thought for sure he was going to step out of bounds. And he did not. And so I thought it was a thing of beauty. So very encouraged by him. He's very, very impressive young freshman. I love that he's out there playing, too, because we didn't always see that under Coach Snyder, freshmen out there, true freshmen out there playing. So it was a good thing to see, and we need them. We need that athleticism.
Because it looks like Malik Knowles might be done for the year. I don't know. He injured his shoulder, arm, collarbone somewhere on that right side. I thought he broke his arm, and then everyone pointed out to me, hey, dumbass, that's his left arm. I'm like, okay, I'm not very smart. I'm going to shut down Twitter now because I can't tell left from right. But, it didn't look good. He went down on a beautiful run where he jet sweep, where he picked up some serious yardage. So they might have to rely on Youngblood even more. But I tell you what, they finally found something from Sebastian Taylor, the big, strong receiver who has struggled with nuances of the game like not jumping off sides and, with a false start and lining up right, and those nuances, was pushed into duty tonight, and he really showed through for the Cats. And Skylar Thompson started looking downfield, and really the only answer Texas Tech had on the defense towards the end of the game was interference. They were just grabbing a hold of guys because they were so dumbfounded in pass coverage. But when K-State really, really needed a play, they found Sebastian Taylor, and this was in the fourth quarter with a 48-yard pass. He was wide open. He was so wide open I was afraid he wasn't going to catch his ball. But here is Sebastian Taylor on a great ball from Skylar Thompson.
Thompson, plenty of protection. Now it breaks down. He throws it deep, has his man at the 10. This is Taylor. Touchdown, Kansas State. Sebastian Taylor scores. I see no flags. The Wildcats score a touchdown and lead 29-20.
Our thanks to Learfield IMG, the Kansas State Sports Network, for letting us use the calls from Wyatt Thompson. They always add a lot to the show. Wyatt had a good game, I think. He was on his money. That press box, it's not easy at the press box in Lubbock because it is way up there. It's kind of hard to see what's going on. But it was an exciting game to call. And I tell you what, Brian Hanley, as we go to a break here, this is huge. That two-game losing streak felt more – what's the word I'm looking for? It felt like it had more weight to it than the first two-game losing streak. Even though both of these games are competitive, and those games were kind of blowouts to Oklahoma State and Baylor, and these losses to Texas and West Virginia felt troubling. Like they just kind of had run out of gas. So to go on the road and do this, I think is refreshing to the teams and honestly the fan base.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like the difference is that while Oklahoma State has lost a few games and Baylor is really, really good, it turned out to be, I think K-State, those guys were better than we were, which is okay, but they were better than we were. The last two games, I don't believe the teams were better than K-State. That's why it felt bad, because we had Texas on the ropes and we couldn't put them away. And even though they came back and jumped on us, that was a game that K-State should have won. Last week, I don't want to keep harping. We all know we should have won that football game, and we are a better football team than West Virginia. Although they are playing better, and they played Oklahoma State tough today, that was still minus a quarterback and, a receiver that's not there anymore. But, at the same time, that's why it felt bad, at least in my eyes. And I think a lot of the people that I talked to, it felt bad because – we were better than those teams, and we lost. Yeah. And that's where the bad feeling comes in. And it feels like, the ship's going the opposite direction. The numbers are starting to catch up to us. We're beat down. We're wore out. But to come back and to fight and get a win on the road like this, and there were times in this game where I thought the same thing. I'm like, man, the guys just look beat up. Yep. And they are. I mean, let's call it what it is. They are beat up, but they fought. And that's what they didn't do last week. And I know I keep harping on that, and I apologize, but that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the guys fight and compete, and they did that and won. And they didn't take their foot off, not necessarily the gas that we had this game, blown out, but they said, you know what, especially on offense, they said, no, we're going to win the game. We're going to keep going. We're not going to allow this team to come and beat us. And that's all that you can ask for, is for the guys to give that kind of effort and refuse to lose a football game. And they did that tonight.
I agree. It was very encouraging. And oddly, I feel even worse about that loss last week after watching Oklahoma State go into Morgantown and win with a greatly depleted offense, and they still found a way to win. That game, knowing that you could be at 8 wins right now is a little frustrating, but at least they're at 7. And one of the things I asked Chris Kleiman about earlier this week was, and it wasn't frustrating wasn't the word I used, but does it feel like he can't quite make that final play to get the win? And he admitted, that the other team has been making that big play. They got the interception in West Virginia. Texas put together the drive and field goal. It was them doing it. And if there was a lot of key plays in this game, but if there was one play that got K-State over the hump, it was this one. Tech drove the field. It looked like the Red Raiders were going to put another touchdown up, but Denzel Goolsby read a play perfectly. And as we go to break, we'll let Wyatt Thompson call this interception by Denzel Goolsby.
There's the snap. Play fake. Duffy wants to throw. Winds up, fires deep, and it's intercepted in the end zone. Kansas State picks it off. It's Goolsby. Denzel Goolsby with a pick.
Stay locked in. The PowerCat podcast will be right back.
Getting the crew together isn't as easy as it used to be. We get it. Life comes at you fast. But trust us, your pals are desperate for a good hang. And when they hear you stock the party with drinks from Drizzly, they'll be banging down your door. Let Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery, take care of the supplies. All you need is an excuse. It doesn't even have to be a good one. It's your dog's birthday. The loquats are finally ripe. Whatever. With Drizzly, you can compare prices on a massive selection of beer, wine, and spirits and get them delivered straight to your door. Which means you can entice the crew to leave their houses without ever leaving yours. Whatever the occasion, download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations.
So I'm a father of one. I gotta find a babysitter. I found Care.com and I was blown away. Through the platform, I was able to find local and experienced candidates along with their reviews and rates, which were way more affordable than I anticipated. Care.com really put me at ease knowing that they were all required to go through a background check. If you're like me and you need to find someone reliable for your childcare necessities, check out Care.com. Find the ideal sitters for your childcare needs.
We now send it back to Fitz in the WTC gig-powered studios.
Welcome back to the PowerCat Postgame podcast, sponsored by Caddy Shack Golf. It's Caddy with 2 T's. Get that right, because you'll never find them without it. For K-Staters, by K-Staters, jackets, hats, polos, t-shirts, golf accessories, Caddy Shack Golf Wear, Caddy with 2 T's. Visit caddyshackgolf.com. Use the code GPC for free shipping on your next order, and we will have a Caddy Shack Golf question of the week in this segment as we get to some questions from Wabash Station. Tim Fitzgerald in the WTC Gig Powered Studios, joined by Brian Hanley, one of our football analysts, on the phone from his home in Texas. Brian, it's a lot more fun to talk about wins and losses. It really is.
It is.
It really is. And it's funny. We can look at our podcast traffic, and it drops. Every time K-State loses, it drops about 20%. And then they win and goes back up. It goes even back up higher, and then it drops 20%. And then it goes back up higher. It's just hysterical. K-State fans don't want to hear about the losses as much. Nobody does. But there's still some issues with this team and some great questions from Wabash Station as Kansas State beats Texas Tech 30-27 on the road tonight in Lubbock, Texas. Man, it's kind of funny. The list attendance is 5,011. I think they left a digit off here. 50,000 on hand at Jones AT&T Stadium, a great venue, a hostile venue, maybe the meanest venue in the Big 12. They don't lose much at home at night, my friend. They just don't. They play at home at night, they win like 75% of their games. So this was a really nice win for K-State. Let's look at some of the stats here real quick. Skylar Thompson was only 14-28 in this game. I think that's a little bit disappointing in the fact that you want to see that number a little higher. I thought he made some different decisions than I would wanted him to make as he scrambled around tonight. But he did have 2 TDs, 1 interception on an underthrown ball late there. But he ended up with 246 yards. He's beginning to rack up some decent passing numbers, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it wasn't his best game, but it wasn't his worst game, and it was better that he made some throws. Like I said, he let himself down with making some bad throws, but he also made some good throws and had some key drops. I mean, 2 touchdowns were dropped in the first half. So I think he played an okay game. You definitely want to see the percentage get up there a little bit. Not just a little bit. I mean, you need to see it at 60-65%. That's what you want. And he's got to get there. And for the most part, he has been throughout the season, but tonight was a step back in that capacity, but I don't think it was a step back in his play. I thought he did well. We're not going to be able to run the quarterback. And a testament to the coaches, they didn't try to run him a whole lot because, again, teams have decided you're not running the football. And that means the quarterback's not going to be able to run it either. And so they're not going to beat their head against that, trying to do that, running the quarterback when teams are not going to let you. I mean, there's no reason to get your quarterback beat up doing that. So, again, a testament to the coaching staff. But I thought Skyler did fine. I thought he did fine. One of the things that I did see, and you see that from time to time, was the leadership role. You can only see so much as far as on TV, what they show. But you saw that. You saw the leadership last week. You didn't see that. So, again, testament to him to taking that leadership role to another level. Like I said, there's only so much that you can see on TV, but the things that you can see, he didn't do that last week, and this week he did. So, very, very good to see that part from him.
Last week I looked at those game stats, and outside of those 2 turnovers, the Skylar Thompson interceptions, the stats feel like Kansas State won the game. Well,
right.
The stats lied again in this game because it looks like Texas Tech won this game. They outgained Kansas State 498 to 362. So as much as we talk about that defense, they bend, but they didn't break as much as you would think with that kind of yardage. Tech actually ran the ball better, 144 yards on just 31 carries. K-State was 126 for 37. Jet Duffy threw for 354. It's just kind of amazing as you go through the stats, but there's the turnovers, 2-1. I'm looking for time of possession, and of course, these stats don't have it. Just a crucial stat for K-State, but they don't have it. I'm encouraged. This time they found the way to grind it out and win. And let's get to some questions from Wabash Station now. Some really good stuff. And let's get right to it. You are an offensive lineman, and that doesn't change. Even though you're older now, you're still an offensive lineman. If called upon to go play a little football, you say, I got this. Yo Mama wants to know, what is the problem right now with the offensive line?
I don't know that it's necessarily all the offensive line.
True.
Because one thing is, there's 2 aspects of it. The run game. If they've got enough guys up there, you don't have enough guys to block them. So that's the first part. But that also can be true in the passing game if they're blitzing guys. If they blitz one more than what you have, because remember, you have to account. There's nobody that the quarterback is going to account for. His job is just, if they bring more, is just to throw it before he gets hit. So, in the run game, there isn't anything. That how you offset that is by running the quarterback. Well, the coaching staff's not going to just do that. And I think it's a good job to not just do that. I don't know that the offensive line, that there's necessarily a problem, but when there's 8 guys up there, you don't have enough guys to block them. And K-State has gotten really predictable. Now, in the first half, we did a good job of not just always running the ball on first down, which we had gotten into that mode the last 2 games. First down, we're running the football. Well, they didn't do that so much in this game. They got away from that tendency, which I count as a liability, because if you're constantly running the football on first down and behind the sticks, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball. But they didn't do a whole lot of that in the first half, especially. They threw it a lot on first down. So you got to give your guys a chance. But teams have just said, like I mentioned in the first half, the post-game podcast, is that they're not going to allow K-State to run the football. Teams have just decided, we're going to make you throw it, and we're going to make Skylar beat us. And I think he's doing a good job with that. But the line, I'm not saying they're great. I'm not saying that at all. I don't know that we necessarily have the NFL guys that we've had before, and I think that's one thing that people have to realize. I mean, we've had some really good offensive linemen as of late that aren't there now, so they make us look better. When you have NFL guys, top tier draft pick NFL guys, your offensive line is going to be better. It's going to look better, and we don't have that necessarily this year. Not that the guys aren't good. I'm not even saying that we don't have anybody that can play. I'm just saying, with Cody Whitehair and Dalton Schoen, I mean, those guys were big-time offensive linemen. We just don't have that this year. I think people need to understand that and not think that, hey, we're not, their offensive line, there's a problem, or they're not any good. Teams are taking the run away. They're bringing more people than what we can block in the passing game. It's just a learning experience, and we're just, we'll have to get better. And I think the guys are doing a good job, but who knows? You also look at them, they don't really do a lot of rotations. The guys could also be beat up.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect that you don't necessarily see as a fan, is that this is all we got. This is the best that we've got. And the guys may be beat up, and that happens. And when you don't have the numbers and you don't have the depth, you can't rotate. Not that you do a lot of rotating on the offensive line anyway, because you don't necessarily want to do that. But if the guys are beat up and they're out there at 70%, well, you're not going to get as good a play.
A couple of observations that I thought were really interesting from where this staff started with its offensive line to where they are right now. Number one, they made it very clear, Connor Riley, the offensive line coach, that he wanted 7, 8, 9 guys to rotate on the offensive line. So I think what they're doing right now with really only 6 guys, Josh Rivas is about the only guy coming in off the bench, and he's just coming in for Curl at one of the guard spots. The other 4 guys don't leave the field. I think that tells you they're not real happy with the depth they have at offensive line, that nobody's really stepped up.
Yeah, I mean, you don't always want to rotate a ton of guys on the offensive line. That's just not what you see. But you also want to be able to get some guys a rest, especially if guys get beat up. Because believe it or not, offensive linemen get beat up. And, we're sitting here at 11 games in. Guys are beat up. I mean, it's football. It's just plain and simple. They may be out there playing, but guys are still beat up. And just what you said. They're not happy with the depth. You can't rotate a guy in or out because they don't necessarily, either the guys don't know or they don't believe in what's behind them. So this is what we've got right now. It's not the most athletic offensive line, which we've had some better offensive line, more athletic offensive lines in the past. And I believe that that's what this coaching staff wants, is that they want athletic guys, big athletic guys. We don't have that right now. So we just got to be patient. We just got to be patient and wait for them to get those guys in.
You nailed it. That was my second point I wanted to make, was one of the things we noticed about this offensive line when we started talking to them in spring, and then we saw them, early in this, when fall camp was opening, they had taken some weight off of them. A lot of the bellies were gone. They leaned them down a little bit. They said that their muscle mass was up. Their weight really didn't move. They just felt like they got some of that fat off of them, and that told me they expect better athletes than maybe what they have right now, and they were trying to make the best of what they have, but they want really mobile athletes up there, and I think we are going to see a little bit of change in how they recruit offensive linemen going forward, because they want some guys that can really get out and move, and I think I've noticed sometimes they're not getting to their points where the blocks are expected to be made. Maybe that asks a lot of an offensive line, but that's this system they run, and you got to be able to get around and get it done.
Yep. Yeah. You see some of the things that they do, not blocking a defensive tackle and expecting somebody to come down and trap block them, even on pass plays, and, pulling around. I've seen him run outside zone play to the right. The backside guard takes a step back. He blocks the backside end that's slanting down, and a running back is literally running into that hole that's right there, that natural hole. I saw that earlier in the season. I haven't seen that so much lately, but that takes some athletic things to do. And if guys are beat up, they're not going to be able to do that. So we run a very sophisticated blocking scheme on a lot of our run plays. And I just believe you're 100% correct, Tim, is that they want to have – it's not that you can't be big. They just want you to be athletic.
Right.
And so they're going to be that's what they're going to be recruiting, big guys that can move all across the board. Doesn't matter what position you're going to play. They want guys that are big. I mean, and that's what NFL guys are. The NFL guys are big, but they can move around.
Right.
And that's exactly what they want. So
exactly.
I feel this is just moving forward. And we had those guys before. So it's not like K-State didn't have those guys before. We had those guys before, that were big, that were athletic, and could move around. And look where those guys got drafted. They got drafted that high for a reason. And they're playing in the NFL that way for a reason. So we'll get back to that. It's going to take some time to get there.
Right. It is going to take some time. I hadn't intended to be the question of the week for our Caddyshack Golf gift certificate, but I feel like Yo Mama deserves it after getting a good, 10 minutes of answer out of us from his question. So, Yo Mama, you got the Caddyshack Golf question of the week. I'll be notifying you about how to get that gift certificate from our friends at Caddyshack Golf. Let's move on now. Mountain Joe, how nice was it to see Sebastian Taylor get targeted several times tonight? I'm telling you what, Brian, he's been a point of frustration, but if Malik Knowles is injured again, he might answer a big question mark for this offense. If he can really emerge as a go-to guy on the outside, that could really help the offense because he's big and he's fast and he makes a hard matchup.
Yep, absolutely. It's frustrating to see Knowles injured, and I know nobody's more frustrated than him with that. But you're right. We're going to need him to step up if Knowles is going to be out. So, and he's big and fast, but that transition, man, that transition to big-time football isn't always – some guys can make it seamless, and some guys, it can be difficult. So that's where the difference is. And sometimes it takes 1 year, it takes 2 years, it takes 3 years, whatever it is. But, that transition to big-time football isn't always the easiest transition. So it's good. And that just looked like that he was lost earlier in the year. Like he didn't know how to play football. It literally looked like that. Lining up in the wrong spots, jumping off sides as a receiver. I mean, you're looking at the football. So jumping off side, I'm like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? You don't even stick around to listen to what the snap count is because when you're in the huddle, because you don't need to know because you're looking at the football. So it's just one of those things. But it was good to see him get targeted. And I believe because the coaching staff knows that he's clearly talented. And that's the thing. He said, but if you don't know what you're doing, you can't be out there. I know guys used to criticize Coach Snyder about that all the time, about guys being athletic and, they're big and fast. But if you don't know what you're doing, you cannot be on a football field. Believe it or not, I know the stereotype is football players are big, athletic, dumb guys. No, they're not. You look at a playbook, a college playbook. You can't to know that and look at it, and you can't be stupid and understand that. That's just impossible. So you got to know what you're doing and where you're going, and that's the first thing. Because first of all, you can't play fast if you don't know what you're doing.
No,
so so it's good to see that looks like a little bit of a light has gone off. So I'm happy to see it. We're going to need it, though. You're right. We're absolutely going to need it. I
loved it. I think it was last week when Sebastian came in, got a false start, and came out without ever the ball being snapped. It's like that's not a good sequence for you, young man. So It's really good to see him get out there and really make something happen. And you brought this up, so let's move on to Beefy Panda, which is, by the way, a great nickname for either one of us on the website. Beefy Panda asked ask this: what can be done to clean up these penalties? That was something else Coach Snyder was really hard on. If you had penalties, you paid a price. I don't want to make it sound like Chris Kleiman is such a player's coach he didn't punish guys, because I know he emphasizes this, but what can they do to clean up these penalties? Because they're getting to be a little bit silly. The 15-yarders just are like, what are you doing? Stop this.
Well, the young blood dancing in the end zone. I saw it when it happened, and it wasn't so much that – you can't do that in college football. He knows that.
I know.
You couldn't do it in high school football. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And when you see those kinds of penalties, it's like, okay, first of all, it's a lack of discipline. So we can say whatever we want and defend Coach in whatever manner that we want to try to defend him. But the bottom line is that is a lack of discipline, and that has to be coached. I'm not beating up on the coaching staff. I'm not saying anything that most fans don't already know. It's a lack of discipline, and that has to be coached. You can coach discipline. You absolutely can do that. Playing time, punishment, those are things that get people's attention. You got to be able to do that. Now, it becomes difficult when you don't have the numbers and when you're trying to win football games. I get that. And right now we're in a mode where the numbers aren't necessarily there, and we are still trying to win football games. So that's part of it. So you got to give the coaching staff a break when it comes to that. But these penalties are just ridiculous. The celebration penalties are mind-numbing, because literally you can do all the dancing and all the things that you want to do 5 seconds later on the sideline. You can do it all, and nobody cares.
Yep.
But you just can't do it. It just gets on my nerves. I don't understand it. There was nobody crazier than Michael Bishop when it came to that kind of stuff. Or better yet, there was nobody crazier when it came to that kind of stuff than Darnell McDonald. Absolutely nobody on earth. He wanted to party and dance after every catch, much less every touchdown. But he did it on the sideline. So, and we all took part in it, and we loved it. So it was this is just getting ridiculous, and I just, and the false starts in the red zone. I'm like, my goodness. It's just, they're drive killers. And they make you kick field goals when you should be scoring touchdowns, and that's how you lose football games. And everybody knows that. When you settle for field goals, that's how you lose. It's literally how you lose. So I don't know. It's hard for the coaching staff, so I don't want to beat them up too bad, because what I mentioned before, they're trying to win and balance that with discipline, because the one thing that you can do is, like you said, playing time. But you can't bench everybody. So, and it's just, and the offensive linemen are crushing us with these pre-snap penalties. Yep. Jumping off sides. It was 2 in a row. It was almost like they were going down the line of scrimmage on, from left to right. I was like, Jiminy Christmas.
Yeah.
So,
I tell you, that was good. I tell you to drop the mic, but it's your phone, so hang on to it. I don't want to. I need you for a couple more questions here. Let's kind of step out of order here. I want to get back to, I've got one more that I want to finish up with, but before that, B-Sits wants to know this. Well, would love to hear the breakdown of that last Tech TD in the fourth quarter. What did the D do wrong? It looked to me like Lance Robinson, Jonathan Durham was out this game. He's the backup nickel back, so McPherson was the main guy, and he went out on the snap before, and Robinson had been playing corner and doing a pretty damn good job as kind of the fifth corner on this team. He got pushed into duty, and he had a couple of really nice breakups, including a touchdown that he saved. And it looked like Robinson got thrown in at nickelback, which he's the third guy there, but they went after him. And, boy, he had his shoulders turned the wrong way. He lost sight of the receiver. It just wasn't pretty. So I'm just going to say, Tech, you won that one. And I think Lance Robinson learned from that.
Yeah, it just looked like he just didn't know what he was doing. Yeah. Let's just call it what it is. It didn't look like that he really even expected to play. This is one of those numbers games where we had a guy that was out on the field that shouldn't have been out on the field.
Right.
So, That's just my opinion. It might be the wrong opinion, but I don't believe that it is. He just didn't look like he knew what he was doing and was out of position and just wasn't ready to be out on the football field. But we had to put him out there. Wow. So that's all that was. We can sugarcoat it and whatever we want to do, but that's just, in my opinion, that's literally what it looked like.
When you get down to your third string guy at any position and they get thrown into the fire, I mean, it's not like you got your third string guy and you know it during prep week and they get to work. I don't know how many snaps he's been taking at nickel, but I imagine he's been focusing at corner. With A.J. Parker down, they've been worried about that. Walter Neal goes down early in this game, didn't come back. Hopefully that's not bad. Yep. And then Durham's out, and then McPherson goes down, and now we're talking about 4 injuries in the secondary. You're just kind of running out of guys, and I saw Kleiman talking to Robinson, and I know what he's saying. You got this, and of course, the kid's going to say yeah, and then he didn't have.
Right.
He didn't have. Bless his heart. He did play really well at corner. I think he showed something. He's a competitor. I think the corners have been so much better this year than in recent years, and it's all the same guys. That's what's funny. Van Malone, I think K-State just want to hug you because you brought back good cornerback play, which has been a real frustration at times for fans. Mm-hmm. Well, let's get this thing wrapped up here with this question from GC KSU Rules. How much are injuries affecting this team?
A ton. I mean, a ton. I mean, every football team goes through attrition. Football is a game where bones break, ligaments tear, you have small tissue or soft tissue injuries. It just happens. That's the way that it works. And you got to have the numbers, and that's what you see the big teams have. They got 3 and 4 deep. Now, I'm not talking about where you have to be, Ohio State, where you got 74, Alabama, where you got 75 4- and 5-star guys that you can just roll out there. You just have to have decent numbers of guys that can play at this level. That's where the difference is. So when you get the injuries and they start to mount, this is 11 games in, basically it's 12 weeks when you count the bye, or 13 when you count the byes. That's a lot of football that's been played because practice counts. And people don't realize, they think it's all just the games. Practice counts. Yeah. I mean, and you guys get hurt in practice too. So it's just a lot of football that's been out there. And we just don't have the numbers right now, the quality numbers at every position. And injuries are an issue. And there's nothing anybody can do. Like I said, if injuries are going to happen with every football team at every single level, every single year till the end of time. That's just the way it works. How you can combat that is you have to have the eligible or able bodies that can compete at this level. And you have to have several at each position. We just don't have that. Yep. It's not – we haven't had that for a while. So, but I think we're doing a better job of battling this year than what we have in previous years. But injuries they're a problem. But, you can't use that as an excuse because injuries are a problem for every football team.
That's true. But as you point out, next man up applies to no matter who the man is, and that man better be a pretty good football player. And I'm not throwing anyone in particular into this heading, but they got to get more dudes on this team. Whether it's first stringers, second stringers, or in this case, we talk about third stringers. It's got to have more guys that can get out and play at the Big 12 level, and that's what dropped off under Coach Snyder, sadly, as the time went on, and that's just the way it is. It's just a sad reality. Well, we have been sponsored by Caddyshack Golf. That is Brian Hanley, our football analyst, former Kansas State offensive lineman on those incredible 97 and 98 Wildcat teams. He had to live with Darren Howard. Hey, by the way, how much did Darren Howard eat? Because he went from a little skinny guy that you looked at him and you went, that's a defensive end, to by the time he was senior, he was like 265, 270, and then at the end of it in the NFL, I think he made it to almost 300 playing defensive end. He must have been putting away so many calories. It was incredible.
The thing that used to drive me insane is because I, on the other hand, was on the other end of the spectrum, if you can believe that or not. So I had to try to keep the same weight or lose weight, Well, he is eating. I mean, we had 2 drawers that were full of candy bars at all times. I'm like, are you kidding? And I can't touch any of it. There's Hershey's and Kit Kats and everything just everywhere, all over the house, and he ate all the time. I mean, literally ate all the time. And I'm just looking at him, just wanting to punch him in the face because he knew it. He'd be eating a Hershey bar right in front of me. And I'm like, dude, look. So, yeah, he used to eat constantly was eating all the time. And sooner or later, the weight it stayed on. That's the thing, though. After practice, practices, especially under Coach Snyder, you're burning the calories. So I had to constantly eat just for guys like him to keep weight on, just to maintain the weight that you had. So he was always eating.
Yeah, that's you and I have the same story. It's like, as former Kansas State coach Larry Kramer, an assistant coach, once said, you might want to try to mix in a salad. I try, Coach. I do. I don't like salad as much.
I don't like salad.
Kansas State is 7-4 following tonight's 30-27 victory at Texas Tech. It was a very nice victory for a team that had just lost 2 in a row. And our thanks once again to Learfield IMG for providing us highlights from the Kansas State Sports Network, and we will let Wyatt Thompson take us out with his final call. The game time has been set for next week. Kansas State will conclude its Big 12 season, its regular season, at 6 p.m. against Iowa State. Bring a jacket, folks. It's going to be chilly probably by the time that game is over, but the Cats and Clones will tangle at 6 o'clock next Saturday. Have a great Thanksgiving, everyone. Brian, thank you very much, my friend. Good as always. And here we go.
Thank you.
Here is Wyatt Thompson with the final call of the game.
They'll mark off the final 30 seconds, but your Wildcats have gone on the road and won in Lubbock again. K-State wins for the 3rd time on the road this year. They win at 30-27. They are 7-4 with senior night coming up next week against Iowa State.
You've been listening to the PowerCat Postgame Podcast presented by Caddyshack Golf. PowerCat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.